So hi, and welcome to the first meeting of the Access Europe Virtual User Group. So this is in this meeting, I'll start by talking about Treeviews and how to use them, what they are and what they're not. And I will follow that up with a discussion about what the further meetings of this group should be about. So I'll start with a short introduction of myself. My name is Asi Bo Christensen, and I was educated in 2006 as a civil engineer with a specialty in microphysics. And in 2007, I started working in the current company I am with now, Atkins, Denmark, and actually working with railway safety and hazard management. I got a project in 2008 that involved using an Access database, and that's the first time I ever started using Access. And I think that is a testament to how easy Access is to start using. My specialty, I work on information-based applications where the focus is on the text of the information that the user puts into the system. So this is as opposed to inventory tracking or sales tracking. I am interested in comments that the user writes or bits of text or document creation based on my applications. Some of the projects I've worked on are a requirement management tool, a tool used for tender evaluation, and a tool used for document reviewing. And all of these tools have been used in one major project, the new metro line in central Copenhagen, which is a project of approximately 3 billion euros. So it's a rather big project for using Access, but it's been functioning just fine. So as I said, today's presentation, I'll start by approximately 30-minute presentation on the Treeview. I'll follow up with, I guess, 20 minutes group discussion on what further meetings should be about. And if time permits and there is an interest, I can continue to talk about Treeviews or something else. First off, what is a Treeview? I think a Treeview that most people know is the folder Treeview from Windows Explorer, where you see the folders and you can click, expand, see subfolders. A Treeview is a display of many pieces of hierarchical related information. It could be showing employees, who is the employee's manager, who is the manager's manager, and so forth. Each element in a Treeview is called a node, and a node can be either a root node, i.e. it has no parents, or it can be a child node and have one parent. A single node can have many children. Nodes can have a picture or an icon attached to it. So what are Treeviews good for? You can show many related items at once. You can have a continuous form. If you have a continuous form in Access, you can only show one parent and multiple children, or you can have a subform and a subform, but a subform cannot have a continuous subform. But a Treeview can show a children and all their children and all their children as long as you have real estate on the screen. So one of the things I like about the Treeview, or one of the things I often use it for, is navigation. This is an application I wrote for tender evaluation. On the left-hand side, we see a Treeview I created, and I'm just going to zoom in a bit. We can see it shows multiple types of information. It has a lot of nodes, and each of these nodes represents a different record in our database. So this is about tender evaluation, and if we look at one of the expanded bullets, we can see that the status of the bullet in this case is actually indicated by the colors. It is mostly green with a bit of red, meaning that some parts of it, this item in the tender evaluation is okay, and some parts of it are not. Below we can see, here we can see 4 comments. We have different types of comments. The check marks are for yes, no type of comments. The question mark is for indicating whether the information provided is adequate. That's a different types of comments. And again, if the information is adequate, the tender gets a green. This point of the tender evaluation gets a green question mark, and if it is not okay, it will get a red question mark as shown down here. Furthermore, the technical aspect of the tender item is evaluated, and they can get a smiley. So we can see that here we have both the type and the value of comments are indicated by the comment icons, and the color of the comments indicated here indicates whether or not this particular comment has been edited since the last time this user looked at it. Now, we implemented, for instance, this read-unread classification because we have multiple users working on each tender item, and they might want to see if the item has changed since they looked at it last. So this is just a demonstration of what kind of information you can present in a Treeview. I think the most important thing from this, even if it is a bit confusing because you don't know the icons, is that at a single glance, you can get an overview of the system evaluation, which items are green, which items are red, which are partly red, which are partly green. Now, what are Treeviews good for? Again, we can show many sub-records when there's no place for multiple subforms. So this is similar to what I did before, but it's a different system. It's a hazard management system. And we have, again, 3 different types of sub-items. And they're indicated and grouped by their icon so that when we navigate, when we click on it, we will get taken to the correct subform. Just go up a bit. As you can see here, the Treeview over here, if you click, depending on what type of item you click, the source object of the subform on the right will be set. So if we click on a main item, it will show a main item. If we click on one of the comments, it will show the comment. We can use that information to navigate, to collect and show only the information we want to present. So this is another example. This is document review system. Shows we have all of these comments are for the same document, but different versions of the same document. So on the same document, we can have multiple reviews. We can have many comments, and each comment can have a different type of status. Again, as we look at it, we quite quickly get an overview of the document. We can see that most of our comments are closed. They have a check mark. One of our comments have been moved to another document, so it has a arrow. Some of these comments have received replies in the latest version from the contractor, so they have a small mail icon to say that the contractor has replied and we need to take some action. Another thing we can do is we can have context-sensitive right-click menus. Since the code knows which item is clicked, your code can show pop-up menus accordingly to the item. You can even use it to show stuff that is only available to certain users. For example, the menu I show down here has a delete review option, and this is only visible if you're an administrator of the program. What's the downside to a Treeview? Treeview is part of the Microsoft Common Control Library, and that has been available in all releases of Office since Windows XP and Office XP. But the downside is it is only 32-bit compatible, and to the best of my knowledge, Microsoft has no intentions of providing a 64-bit compatible version. It can be vulnerable to patches. There was a patch in 2012 which caused a registry error, which meant that all my Treeview applications using a Treeview had to be updated, and I had to write a fix for the registry. And now these kind of patches don't happen often, but when they do happen, they can be a huge pain, and you have to support that, or at least be prepared for it. On the other hand, the Treeview does offer things that you can't get in a simple Access application without using Treeviews. I also think, in my own opinion, that Treeviews can provide a very professional look to an application. if you don't want to use the Treeview that is in the common control package, you can also use a all VBA Treeview that Jan Karel has made using MS Forms, and you can download it from the link I show here, or you can search for it by just searching for all VBA Treeview. And I've tested it briefly, and it does work. I tried doing various stuff with it, and I guess the only reason I haven't started using it is because I know the common control library, and I don't have any users who have started to use 64-bit access. But I guess if I had a user tomorrow that wanted to use 64-bit access, this would be the place I would go and start looking further if I needed to do a Treeview. So at this point, I was planning to do a live Treeview demo, and depending on the audience, I was either going to do a simple Treeview from the bottom, or if the people listening are more experienced in Treeviews, I'd do a two-table approach to Treeview. Are you still there, David?
Yes, I am, yes. So I muted it off just in case there was some background noises on the recording.
Well, thank you for that. Do you have a preference? Should I just show a simple Treeview from the bottom up?
Yeah, that'll be good.
I'll do just that. You can also see the same in some of the videos I've presented, which will probably go into a little more detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a blank form, and in this database I've prepared, I have a list of documents. I have 4 documents, which have a document ID, document title, and they have a sort value because I want them to be presented in a certain order. So I have my form, go to this view, and I'll go up here in design, say, click the small button in 2010, say ActiveX Control. Scroll down to Microsoft and select the Treeview item. Microsoft Treeview Control. Now, in 2010, the reference to the Treeview will be set automatically. Otherwise, you might need to go into your Visual Basic editor, go to Tools, References, and select the Microsoft Windows Common Control 6.0 as a reference. So this just puts our Treeview onto the form. Now we want to load our nodes into it. So I'll go in and start by creating a new module. And I will create a function called load Treeview. And I'll make sure that my form calls this when it opens. So I'll look at the events and say on load. Load the Treeview. Now, of course, I need a bit more code in my load Treeview for its function. I'll start by dimensioning my variables. I'll create a TV variable as a Treeview, and I'll dim a node X as a node. I also need to get a record set of my documents. Use a DAO record set and open a record set of my TBL documents. And I'll order by the sort value. And I'll loop through my record set. And each time I'll add a node. And I have to supply certain parameters, relative, and the relationship to that relative, a key, the text to display, and if I want, I can set an image, and I can set a special image for when this Treeview node is selected. Now, for this example, all of the nodes are going to be top-level nodes, so there will be no relative, and there will be no relationship, which means these will all be top-level root nodes. I like to write my keys. The keys has to be start with a text character. They can't start with a numeric character. So I like to write them like this and close them in brackets. Get the ID from the record set, the ID of the record, and end. This is similar to XML syntax. Now the text I want to have displayed, that will be the document text or document title. And I need a closing bracket. I'm not going to do images right now. Furthermore, I need to make sure that the preview is set correctly, the Treeview variable. So in order to do that, I'll go save the form as form Treeview example. And set TV equal to forms, form Treeview example. I need the name of the control. It's called Treeview 0. I would like to call it CTRL Treeview. Go back here, put a dot, CTRL Treeview, and what I want, this CTRL Treeview is actually a container for an ActiveX object. And I want the object within the container because that's the actual Treeview. So I'll add a dot object. Now this should actually be ready to run. Let's just check if it compiles and see what happens when I load the form. I misspelled something. Let's go see. I called it document without an S at the end. So we actually now have loaded our documents into the Treeview. Now this Treeview isn't that interesting because it only has a top level and there are no children nodes. So let's start by adding children nodes. Have a second table prepared, TBL comment, which has comment ID, comment text, and what document it belongs to. So I'll open a second record set. And I will add a second loop. Have an extra variable called string find. And I'll use this to navigate the comment record set. I'll set the string find equal to, you can think of this as a where clause. So document ID equal to, and then the ID of the document we're currently looking at. I'll finish my loop. Sorry. So I'll do record set comment dot find first. So this will find the first of the comment that belongs to the document we're currently looking at. Now, if there is a match, this loop will continue, and at the end of the loop, I want to do a find next as opposed to a find first. And of course, within the loop, I also need to add the Treeview, the node. Node comment as another node, and set node comment. Note that we're just using the same variable over and over again. It's not a problem. It gets set to a new value each time. We're not overriding it. We're setting it to something new. That's the difference. between using the set and just a regular equal. So we'll set the node comment equal to Treeview nodes, add a new node. The parent node this time is going to be node X, our document node. The relationship will be that the item we're adding is a child, and I'll add the ID. And close the brackets again. The text, I'll just use the text of the comment. Sometimes you might want to be careful not choosing a text that is too long, because that will make a very long scroll bar appear at the bottom of the Treeview. So if I'm in risk of that happening, what I'll do is I'll just say left of the text value and say choose the first 30 characters to display in the Treeview. So let's debug and see if that works. And I'll close the form and open it again. I didn't open the record set. I guess that's a requirement. And let's just spelling right this time. Stop the code, start over. Now I get an error here. That's actually an error I intended to show. The key is not unique in collection. Now why is that happening? That's happening because the item we're looking at, when we get to this line, we're trying to add a comment with the comment ID of 1, and up here we also have a document with an ID of 1. So if we try to look at the ID of node X, sorry, the key of node X, you can see this is the document. It has the ID of 1, and we can't have two nodes having the same ID. And if we take a look at this piece of string, you can see these two are identical. So the way I solve this or work around this when I have different types of information coming from different tables which might have IDs colliding is that I add the type. So I'll go here, say type, document, end type. And down here I'll say type, comment, end type. So now I have different IDs for documents and for comments. This also means when I'm clicking on them, I can directly see the type by parsing the key string. So closing, going again, the form now opens, and clicking shows our comment. If they have a comment, you can also see this Treeview is actually not that useful in the way it's being presented. So if you want to go look at it, change the appearance, there are two ways we can do that. We can double-click the Treeview to open the properties of the ActiveX within the control, or we can right-click, tree control object, properties. What we want to do here is set the line style to root lines. At least that's the way I prefer it. And let's see how it looks now. So now we get the plus sign, and we can expand. I like the plus sign, makes it look easier to me. So that was a quick rundown of Treeviews. Is there any questions?
No, that sounds very clear. Although there seems to be quite a lot of code involved. I suppose because it's not natively an access object.
Well, it's true. You can't write a Treeview without having some code. If you have a very simple Treeview, you could probably copy paste some code or use some generic code. But In fact, all of that Treeview is just with this bit of information. Of course, it gets more advanced when we want to use the Treeview for navigation, or if we want to use RightClick Menus. We can do drag and drop with the Treeview. We can do different types of icons based on the information in the record set. Say if we give the comment a rating from minor to severe, we could have a red icon if it's a severe comment, or a green icon if it's a minor comment. So you can expand on a lot of this with code, but you won't get around code.
Yeah.
But I don't know many professional applications that don't use at least some element of code. And I guess, yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean that's true, but I was just thinking it's not. You're not getting a lot of support from the Access environment. I suppose it'll make it easier if you created a class module to control the Treeview and save you having to write the code over and over again, won't it?
You could do some things, but I've found that each kind of Treeview is different in what I want to show, what I want to display. If you have, say, sometimes you'll have simple information. You might have an order can have many order lines, but other times you might have information where you don't know how deep the Treeview will go, and you could have sub-elements on different parts of the Treeview, not just the last level. I mean, if you have orders and order lines, it's obvious that order lines will always be a child of the order. But if you have, say, requirements can be nested multiple levels. If you wanted to show requirements as well as their comments in the same Treeview, you would, for each node, have to see if it has comments or if it has other requirements, children. One of the examples I showed, see this one, actually has 3 different types of children, and it's set up to always show the lightning icons first, then nodes, and then these hammer and screwdriver, they're actions. It's a hazard management system, shows potential consequences of this hazard. Then it shows nodes or notes that are related to the evaluation of the hazard severity, and then it shows follow-up actions. And the order of these is always the same for different hazards. Always have the consequences, then the notes, and then the actions. And other types of Treeview will have totally different ways of doing it. This is simpler in a way because the top level node is always a review. Below that, we have a review group, and below that, we have comments. There are not multiple variations of the levels. The levels are always predefined. This one can have multiple subpoints. This point 27 1.1 could expand into 5 different sub-bullets before we even get to starting to have the comments. But you can get a lot of good support from other Access if you have Treeview-related questions. You can follow. I have 6 videos on YouTube showing how to do a Treeview with all the code and sample downloads provided. And it does have a bit of an entry barrier, but once you get across that, you can do a lot of fancy things. Well, so that was my presentation, and the next topic was what future topics might interest you? Do you have anything you would like to hear about at the next meeting?
No, not that comes on top of my head now.
I have a
But
few.
that was certainly interesting because, like I say, I don't use Treeview, so it's interesting to see how you're using this.
My own suggestions could be something like showing more Treeviews, showing how to use a list view. I could talk about list view is also a part of the Microsoft Common Control Library. I can talk about code, how to write code, how to. I could talk about if loops or for loops, do loops, different types of ways of writing code, but that really depends on the audience. I guess if you've worked with Access for a while, you already know how to write simple or advanced code.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a bit of software that can compare to, in Access, compare to memo fields and output the difference in a rich text field. I could talk about making developer add-ins. Could talk about reports in Report View for those of you that don't use Report View a lot. Or I could talk about something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Any of these sound interesting to you?
Something else that's come to mind actually might be interesting is looking at things like these apps, the new sort of HTML apps and
apps for Office.
Apps for Office and sort of linking into SharePoint.
That is definitely interesting. Sadly, I don't have any experience in using that. But I could see if we can get. I don't know yet of anyone that actually has experience in using apps for Access on anything than a more profound than a proof of concept level, or just playing around with it, basically.
Yeah.
But
yeah, but it's still relatively new, isn't
it? Maybe in half a year, I could try to see if there's someone in the MVP group that would consider doing a guest presentation in the group showing stuff about apps for Office.
Sure.
Because that's definitely something I'd like to see.
There are a few people using SharePoint with Access, aren't there?
I've never used SharePoint with Access.
Hmm.
I've used Access with SQL Server. I tried playing around with using it with a remote SQL Server, a hosted server, with quite fine results on a proof of concept level. I didn't have time to go beyond that at the time. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.